Welcome to the Root of Power podcast, where I teach you how to chase your joy, find alignment, and create a life and a business that you love, using actionable methods, interviews, and inspiring stories from people who know that true freedom is found within. I'm your host, your always hype woman and sometimes ass kicker, Amanda Chills, and I am so proud of you for choosing to step into your power. Come along, we've got dreams to build. Hello, podcast fam. We have got a man with us today who has such an incredible journey, and he's going to talk all about it. And we're going to talk mental health and feeling your best and supplements and his invention, which is very cool, and how he's a pioneer in the health and wellness field. So we have Udo Erasmus with us today. Welcome. How are you?
Hi, Amanda. I'm glad to be on. Otherwise,
Yes.
If I wasn't talking to you, I'd be talking to myself in the bathroom mirror. And that's boring.
Yeah, that's not as fun. Although sometimes
I already know, because I already know my story.
Right. I was going to say, sometimes you need an expert opinion, so you have to talk to yourself.
Yeah, well, I if I want an expert opinion, I try to become really, really, really quiet. Because there is an expert inside. When I get quiet, the expert shows up. It's called insight.
I love that. And I think a lot of people are never quiet long enough.
Mm-hmm. I think the biggest problem on the planet, or in the human race, and therefore the planet, is that we don't take time to be present in the space that our body occupies. Because there's energy in there, there's awareness in there, there are gifts in there, there's joy in there, there's peace in there, there is unconditional love there. And we're racing around trying to find it on the outside by pulling stuff together. And we're missing that we already got what we're looking for.
Oh, this is going to be so good. I already know it's going to be so good. And so I wonder if you think this as well, because this is something that I think COVID shined a light on, because it shut so much of the world down. So people who were able to go like hamsters on a wheel 24/7 finally had to slow down. And I think it precipitated an inner knowing crisis for most people, because they're like, holy shit, I've never met myself. I spent my whole life trying to avoid myself, and now I'm forced to sit with myself.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of ways. My quip is, if you can't go outside, go inside. Because there's nothing ever keeps you, no matter what's going on the outside, even if you're in jail, even if you're, even if you got your hands tied behind your back and you're tied to a chair, or whatever the external restriction would be. There's no internal restriction. All the doors, all the way down to the core of your being, where all the goodies are. Those doors are all open, and they have no locks on them, and they don't even have latches on them. They don't even have a door on them. They're just open.
They're just open.
So if you can't go outside, go inside. And if there is a good thing about COVID, is that if you think about it, the greatest people who ever lived, which were the great masters, Buddha and Krishna and Christ, and the greatest people in thousands of years have not been able to put humanity on hold for a little self-examination in thousands of years, and COVID got it done in a couple of months. Worldwide.
That is bananas to think about.
Worldwide. And then when we do that, because it was forced, right? It wasn't chosen, it was forced, right? Then it's like the people who like to go inside say, great, I have more time to enjoy the incredibleness of my own life. The people who are used to always just being on the outside, racing around and doing this and doing that, they go through a little addiction withdrawal, because we're addicted to doing, and now we got to sit still in being. Being, of course, is more important than doing.
Preach. Give it to us.
Yeah, because being, you can live without doing. You can be without doing, but you can't do without being.
And we are human beings, not human doings.
Right. But we live like we were human doings.
Sure.
Right? And so then you have to sit through addiction, and that's where the frustration of COVID came from. Is we've had our addiction, we've been cut off our drug.
Sure.
Right? Our drug is activity. We're addicted to doing. So now we cut off the drug. Now we go through survival system, restless, empty, stir crazy.
Yep.
And then it's like, well, I have my rights and I should be able to, and blah, blah, blah. And then you get through this whole thing where you're fighting with yourself until you finally say, okay, I can't go out. Let me just sit in my butt and get back to how incredible, how magnificent, how awesome it is to be dust, water, air, and solar energy all mixed together to be able to have the human experience.
Yeah. And I find that the people who try the hardest to avoid the human experience, to avoid the heartache and the pain, and they always want to chase joy, right? They want to chase happiness without understanding that it's all or it's nothing. But to not allow the full human experience of like getting your heart broken and getting your hopes up and getting them dashed and laughing so hard it hurts, that's the full human experience. And people who try and cut themselves off from that, cut themselves off from everything, and it is so heartbreaking because they don't understand that that's a consequence.
Right. This is true, and this is the drama and the fun of life. Every day is different. Something the unexpected things always happen, but that can be scary if you don't have a foundation. It's like if you're a little kid, you got your mother's hand to hold, right?
Right.
Then you can be in the crazy world and not get confused.
Right.
But we have something like that inside of us, a foundation. And that foundation is not affected by any of the dramas and any of the traumas.
Yeah.
So we can do the drama and the trauma as long as we also cultivate the wholeness.
Yeah.
So that we have them both. And when we get good at going to where our foundation is within us, then we have choice. I can look at the trauma and deal with the trauma and do what I need to do in that arena. But that's not my whole world.
Right.
I also have at the same time, I can just switch my awareness over to the thing that could have never been traumatized because it's so far beyond trauma.
Sure.
That it's not affected by any of that. And we have both of those in us all the time.
I love that. My parents always said whenever I was so I'm originally from Florida, moved to North Carolina, didn't know anyone, didn't have any friends, had never been to the state. And they said, the worst thing that happens is that you come home. And when that's the worst thing that happens, right? Yeah, and when you were talking, it reminded me of that phrase because we're home. And so the worst thing that happens, you can always come home, but we are our own home, and people don't know and they forget.
And that home is magnificent and awesome.
Yeah.
And there's peace in it, and there's unconditional love in it, there's joy in it, there's genius in it, there's insight in it, there's laughter in it, there's humor in it, there's relaxedness.
All the good things that people want.
We're sitting on them.
Right. Literally.
That's like I have $1 million in my left pocket, but I'm only looking for money in my right pocket, but there's only lint in my right pocket. I'm a poor boy. I'm a poor boy. Well, you got to look in the pocket where the money is if you want to find out how much money you got.
That's so true.
And it's the same thing. It's like, if we want love and joy and happiness in our lives, we got to look to where they live in us.
Yeah.
And they're not even conditional. It's not like this has to happen and then I'll be happy.
It's just there.
I could say, I'll be happy when 8 billion people love me. How much time are we going to spend being happy? Zero. Right? And then I change it and say, I'll be happy because that's part of my nature. I can just go there. And so I can be happy. And so I can just be happy for no reason.
I love that.
Oh,
go ahead.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm done.
Oh, I was going to say, how do people flip that switch if they're like, oh crap, that's me. Like I'm looking outside of myself. Yeah. How do people build that connection with themselves?
I think the first thing is you need to understand that you came loaded into the world with all the things that you're looking for. You came into the world with them. In fact, if you were when you were in your mother's womb, I call it the Buddha tank, right? And in the Buddha tank, there was nothing to do. It's just like COVID lockdown, right? Nothing to do,
except
nowhere to go, right? everything was taken care of. It was pretty safe.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have language. You weren't even breathing.
Mm.
You weren't eating. You weren't peeing. You're just hanging out on a little cord in a tank, right? Your body was growing. You were not growing the body.
Mm-hmm.
That was all just happening. And you were there, and because there was no place to go, your awareness was focused inside, in its source, in life, within your body. And you spent 9 months there. You were never bored, even though there was nothing going on, right? And you could say, in those 9 months, you were in deep, deep, deep meditation, fully present in your being and fully absent anywhere else, right? That's the first, and then you got born, you got pushed out of the Buddha tank, right? And now you're
or ripped out if you're a C-section.
Yeah, however it happened, right? And then your awareness you had to get to know the world. So your focus of awareness went out through your senses into the world.
Right.
It's called gained the world and lost your soul. Could say that.
Yeah.
Right. And so you got to know the world because you have to do that for survival. Because every time something changes, you're attracted to it because you have to assess: is this friend to embrace? Is this foe to run like hell or fight? Or is it irrelevant and I'll just ignore it? And you have to do that very quickly. It's important for survival. So we get really good at doing that. And we end up now being present outside in our focus and absent inside. So we got disconnected from ourselves in that process. It's a natural process. Can't blame anybody for it.
Yeah.
And heartache is the feeling that comes from that inner disconnection. So now, because you didn't know that you disconnected from inside and you have to reconnect inside, now you're looking for all your connections outside.
You're trying to fill a void. Yeah.
And they change all the time. And whenever something ends that you got attached to, your heart aches. So the thing on the outside is the trigger, but the heartache is not about that person or that situation.
Right.
The heartache is you are reminded of your loss of your connection to yourself.
Right.
You're reminded of your disconnection from yourself. And what that is, it's the greatest gift we have other than being alive. Because heartache is your heart calling your focus to come back home inside to its source in life.
Yeah.
And so the first thing is to know that it's within you. The second is to recognize that heartache is a gift and to be with it when you feel it. Not to run from it, not to distract yourself from it, not to explain it away, not to deny it, not to ignore it, not to blame it on something or somebody.
To feel it.
Just to feel it. Because it gets you out of your head, makes you simple, grounds you.
Yeah.
It's your driving force. It's actually
if you allow it to be.
Yeah. Heartache drives everything because it's very powerful to want to feel whole again. That's why we do all our stuff that we do, whether it's sex or whether it's money or whether it's projects or whether it's inventions, whatever, or adventures or whatever it is. We're always hoping that at the end of that, when we're successful, then we'll be okay again. And when we do it, sometimes we spend 20 years doing a big project. And after that 20 years, and it's successful, we get 3 days where we're saying, I did it.
And then what's the next?
And then on the fourth day, this restlessness is back.
Wow.
Because we thought the success was going to make us whole, but it doesn't. Because wholeness comes from coming back home.
Right.
Wholeness is homework, not work out there.
Oh, that's a good phrase. Wholeness is homework. That's good.
Right? But fall in love with doing the homework.
Yeah. And I find that people who, so I put people, so I'm a therapist by trade. Yeah. And I know that you have a master's in clinical psychology, I believe.
No, counseling.
In counseling. Okay. So our brains may work similar. I find that people who are chasing the outside, who are looking to be whole, who are driven by heartache, are filling a void, right? They always miss the mark because they're out, not in. Where I find that people who are rooted in themselves, people who are already home, chase joy. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if that's something that you see.
I think we can take it a little further.
Mm-hmm.
Before I knew how to come home,
mm-hmm.
and I had to learn how to do that because just like everybody, I went out there and I got confused, and I tried this and I tried that, and I was in a war, and like there's a lot of stuff went on, right? Before I knew how to come home to myself for the fulfillment that I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Everything I looked at in the world, there was always this thing, anxiety, right?
Sure.
What can I do that will get me taken care of? It didn't matter what it was. There were things that needed to be done that I wouldn't do because I couldn't see how they would take care of me if I did them.
Sure.
There was always a getting involved in that.
Mm-hmm.
So because I'm discontent, I'm a getter.
Oh, right? Yeah, now, that's true.
When I learned to come home, it completely changed. It's like, oh my God, I'm taken care of. I'm cared for. I'm okay. I'm whole. And if I don't feel whole, I know where to go to feel whole because it's within me. So I don't have to run anywhere to do it. I just have to come home, right?
Yeah. And then your choices are so much better.
Yeah. And then it was, okay, I'm cared for. I'm good. It isn't about me anymore. It's not about me getting taken care of anymore. So what else is left to do? What needs to be done?
Yeah.
Where can I help? How can I make the biggest splash for good in the time that I have on earth? Right?
Yeah.
So I turned, so that was a transformation from being a getter to becoming a giver. And now I can do things and not always try and weigh it's like, what am I going to get out of this? Because I don't need to get anything out of it because I'm okay.
Because you're already whole, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And nothing that I'm going to do, I'll do it because it needs to be done, not because it's going to make me whole.
Right.
Because it isn't going to make me whole. There's nothing out there makes me whole in here.
Yeah.
And I'm already whole in here.
Which I think is one of the secrets. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. If I bring my awareness to where that wholeness lives.
And I think that's one of the secrets to success with integrity. So a lot of people can say they're successful because they make a lot of money or they whatever, but there's no integrity there. That's not success to me. But success with integrity is you give to give and more opportunities come your way. And so you give more and you're rewarded appropriately. That I think is one of the big missing secrets when people say, well, I want to be successful or I want to do these things, like give more. Give more without expectations. Give more without strings. But that does take a certain being whole within yourself to do.
But that, I was going to say, but that's really hard to do.
Yeah.
If you don't feel whole. Then let me just pretend to be whole. That doesn't work either. Right? So and all the really wise people always said, put this first. Sure. Give this priority. Kingdom of heaven is within. Seek first the kingdom. Everything you need is there. And then everything else will fall into place. Everything else, your life will become more abundant. Everything will work better. You're going to have a better energy. People will like you more. You'll be more helpful. People will,
they'll be drawn to you.
You'll be inspired. People are drawn to inspired people, even if they have evil intent. If they're inspired, people flock to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Right? People can be on the wrong side of the spectrum, but the energy still works. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And people are attracted. If they don't have a way to get to the energy within themselves, then they will find somebody who does, and they'll follow them around. The best thing is you find out how to get in touch with your own magnificence And this is not, what do you call them? People who are just into themselves.
Oh, like, oh crap, like egomaniacs or like narcissists.
Narcissism.
Yeah,
right?
Not that way.
So when you say, life is magnificent, I'm not a narcissist, because the narcissists are always trying to get it from the outside too.
Right.
Okay? So I don't need it from the outside. So I say narcissists are not narcissistic enough, because if they really did what was really good for them, they would feel so taken care of that the narcissism would be over.
They would do the work.
Yeah.
They would do the work. How old were you when that became your reality?
Well, it's like a work in progress. I came out of a war. I was very shy. I read lots of books because they were safe. There were no real bullets in a book about war. I got the real bullets when I was 2.5.
Yeah.
And so I was very, very, very withdrawn. So I wasn't as excited about running out into the world as some people were. And so when I was 6 years old, I listened to people argue, and I thought what they argued about was trivial. And I said, man, there must be a way that people can live in harmony. And then this little cocky voice, and I'm going to find out how, not knowing how complicated everything is, right? But that's been my driver. So I got into science, and then I got into biosciences, and then I got into psychology, and then I got a year of medicine, because I thought that's about health, but it was only about disease. So I went back into biochemistry and genetics. Right. Then I left university I was probably 20. Well, I was 26 when I left university, because I wasn't finding what I was looking for, because I was looking for myself. Right. And I thought I'd find it in biology, because biology is about life and life. So we didn't study life in biology. We studied form and function. And anytime we started with something alive, it was dead by the time we're done with it, but we never got a beaker full of life that we could look at. I thought it was going to be liquid and shining.
Sure.
But we didn't. And then I said to my lab partner, we should study ourselves, because we got form and function and life all together right here. And we don't have to kill it to get to know it. Right?
Right.
And the same with psychology. Psychology is study of soul. That's what the word means. But we didn't study soul. We studied we studied beliefs and emotions. We didn't study soul. And so I left university and checked out psychedelics. They sort of blew my door open, because I was so tightly wound in my childhood. Blew the door open. Oh my God, the way I live is only one way out of thousands. Right. And I started looking at possibilities. And then I got kind of burned out on psychedelics, because I did quite a bit for a couple of years. And I said, I'm not going to do any psychedelics, because they're not addictive. So this is not a big deal. I'm not going to do any psychedelics, because I only get one body and I want to look after it. So I want to give it a chance to recover.
Is it your home?
And before those 2 years were up, I had a couple of experiences, and then I ran into somebody who said, the peace that you search for in the world is within you, and I can show you how to connect to it. And I didn't think he could, because by that time I was 30 and he was 14. And I said, wow, what's a 14-year-old going to teach me? I've been around, right? And then I thought, well, if he can, peace is definitely something I'm interested in.
Yeah.
And if he can't show me, I'll do it. And if he can't show me, I'll just keep looking. And so then he showed me a method that I still practice. I thought it was too simple, because it was really hard to get to the moon. It was really complicated.
That's where the magic is.
Yeah, we hadn't gotten to peace. So I thought peace must be more complicated than going to the moon. Right? This is all just logic, right? Like
some kind of logic.
Yeah, it's a kind of logic that comes from ignorance, right? It's definitely ignorant knowledge, right?
Yeah.
And so then I started doing it, and I found out that the woman that I lived with at the time and I argued all the time, every day. I mean, I would just say one sentence, she would immediately take opposite view. Yeah. And I was insecure enough to want her to agree with me. And so we'd get into these like, and we were living in the mountains in Colorado, 9,100 feet in a cabin in the woods that should have been heaven. And it was hell. And it was hell. And so I get so upset. And it was like, I was either going to hit her or I had to leave.
Yeah.
So I would leave and I would sit down on a log and then do like this practice for 5 or 10 minutes. And it's basically a practice where you just get still inside. You follow your breathing. It's like everything calms down. I look at it, it's like, we argued about that. That's so trivial.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned that if I did the practice before the argument, I wouldn't rise to the bait. Mm. So by 6 months in, I said, okay, this works. And so I basically practiced that. But I had other experiences, like very powerful experiences, that made a big difference as well. This was a way of everyday check-in, because you go out automatically. You have to come back deliberately, because there's nothing inside that's changing and saying, look at me, look at me.
Right.
No. So that's why heartache is so good, because it gets you so close, because less than a hair's breadth behind your heartache is your wholeness. Mm. Less than a hair's breadth.
As long as you're willing to like walk through it.
But and it's uncomfortable.
Oh, sure.
When your heart aches, it's uncomfortable.
But so is being miserable for your whole life. So, short-term discomfort, long-term happiness.
Choose the misery that takes you in the right direction.
Right. Oh, yeah. The amount of times that I teach that, I'm like, well, you can be miserable forever, or you can change this one thing and be miserable for a week and be happy.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like I teach that all the time.
Yeah. So, anyway, your question, I forget what your question was, but it had something to do with how old was I? So
I was like, I don't know now.
so when my mind got really blown, I was 28. And what had happened is we didn't grow up religious. My parents were nominally Lutheran, but nature was their religion. Mm. And when we asked questions about all that kind of stuff, because we live in a culture where that's a topic, right? Mm. They would say, check into it yourself, dig it out for yourself, figure out what it means to you, and make your own decision on it. So I really like it, because nobody pushed it on me. Mm. And so, but I got to a point where I said, okay, my grandfather's been dead for 50 years, but I don't even know his name. Mm. He died before I was born. And I don't know anybody who remembers his name. But they're still talking about this Jesus guy 2,000 years later. Yeah. What's the difference between my grandfather and this guy? Why are they still talking about it? There must have been something there. Mm-hmm. And so I got a red letter edition where everything Jesus says is in red ink.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And the rest of it is in black ink, because I wanted to know what the master had to say. I wasn't interested in the Old Testament.
And the other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I started reading that and putting little things to the test, which we were told we shouldn't do. Mm. We should just believe, but I was not good at just believing.
Yeah.
And so I had some really interesting experiences out of that. And then I got in with a Christian group. They called themselves the Jesus People's Army. That should have been a warning to me from my war days, but it wasn't. And I thought, well, these guys must be trying to figure it out themselves, just like I am. And so we'll get together and we'll talk to each other, and I'll learn something from them, and they'll learn something from me. And we'll all go
very idealistic,
enriched, right?
Right.
I walked into this place, and big assumption too. And I walked in, they had a coffee house. I walked down, sat down at a table, and this guy swooped in next to me, and I didn't introduce myself. I just looked him in the eyes and I said, it must be possible to see God and live. Because we were told as kids, if you see God, you die. And I had a problem with that, because it's like, wait a minute, you're supposed to be close to this guy. He's supposed to be your father. He's supposed to be the one that cares for you and loves you. And if you really, and so you want to be a good kid and you want to really get to know him, and then you see him and he kills you. It's like, what is this?
What did he say?
He jumped out of his chair and just, you're from the devil. You're from the Antichrist. Get out. It's like,
oh,
Oh, I went in with my heart open,
no.
and then there was a boot sticking out of it.
Right. Oh, talk about heartache.
So I'm on the sidewalk in the dark, completely confused, and so desperate. I don't remember ever being so desperate. And I really, really, really wanted to know. And so I did what I used to do when I got confused in the city. I'd take off into nature, hang out in nature, and clear my head.
Yeah, what city were you in?
Vancouver.
Okay.
And I went to west coast of Vancouver Island. There's a beach there called Wreck Beach. There's logs, and somebody had draped some plastic over the logs, and it was made a little dwelling. And so I went there, and I said, okay, well, this is where I'm living for the weekend. And I went in, lay down, fell asleep, and in the middle of the night, I woke bolt upright. And there was this being made of light. Couldn't tell if it was male or female, or whether it was old or young. Human being made of light. No tag on that forehead who this is.
No name tag. That was rude. No,
and I didn't believe that kind of stuff because I had never experienced anything like that.
Yeah, that's nuts.
And embodied a message, but it didn't say the message. And I say it's because light has no lips and doesn't speak English.
Makes sense.
So it embodied a message. I could put words to the message, and the message was, I am come not to judge, but to love. I am come not to judge, but to love. I don't know. Do you know any better summary of Christ's message or the Master's message? That was their message to humanity.
Sounds about right.
I am come not to judge, but to love.
Yeah.
But that's not only the message of the Masters to humanity.
That's our job.
I also figured out, that's life's message to your body. And life is the Master. And the second coming is when we all get that the Master lives within us. And we get to know that Master again by stillness practice.
Yeah.
And get into that peace and that contentment, and then express that into the world.
That is a very different paradigm than growing up in a war, who is literally the opposite of that, which is I came to take over.
I got the whole enchilada.
Right. Right. Yeah. So going from your childhood growing up in a war and being a refugee to like humanity's job is to love, and having seen both sides of that spectrum must have been
literally I got to experience all of it.
Yeah.
Right. And from the worst that it gets, because it doesn't get worse than war.
Right.
To the best it gets. And we all have the best in us, and we all have the worst in us.
Yes.
And where we end up is to some extent the result of influences on us. But ultimately, as adults, it's the result of choices.
I was just talking to a client about choices maybe last week, and they were saying, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. I said, you don't technically have to do anything.
Exactly.
Now, there's consequences to every choice that you make, but that doesn't mean that you don't still have a choice. And I think framing all of our behaviors as a choice is so powerful, and it identifies how much accountability like we really do have.
We do, except if you don't know it, and because when I feel whole, I get that I have choice. It's so clear because I'm not in my head. I'm not just in a little place in my head, where I'm really angry or impulsive.
Right.
But I'm actually in a place where I get that anything is possible. That's when choice becomes real. Honestly, I can go this way, and I can go this way, and I can go that way, and I can go this way, and I can go nowhere. Yeah. Right?
But they all have consequences.
Right. But if you're not in a place where you're fully present, then sometimes it's really hard to see that you have a choice. And it looks like you don't have a choice. It's like when you're tied up in trauma, it looks like you have no choice. But the truth is, the peace is within you even when you have trauma. Right? They live together all the time.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe the trauma is here, or, because it's usually something that happened once, and then you make it happen over and over again from your memory, right?
Or sometimes like literally repeatedly.
But that it happens repeatedly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like if you grow up in an abusive household, like the abuse is happening repeatedly, but.
Yeah. I'm not trying to make light of that. I'm just saying that, how do you deal with trauma? Well, part of it is you have to sit with the trauma and you have to sort it out. And that's hard work. That's hard work.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, you also have the peace that was never affected by the trauma and the unconditional love of life for your body that was never affected by the trauma. They're available to you as well. And if you have access to both, not just the trauma and the memory of trauma, but also to the peace, also to the thing that took care of you during the trauma.
Yes.
Right? That's in my war, something took perfect care of me. And I was sick when I was 26. I was still bitching about the war, and the war ended when I was 3. Right? I was still bitching about the war. What do you expect? I was born in a war. What do you expect? I was born in a war. And one day it occurred to me, oh my God, I was just sitting still on a porch in the sunshine in Vancouver. Yeah. It occurred to me, oh my God, the whole time that all of this stuff was happening, and ever since, something has taken perfect care of me. And I have never given that any acknowledgement. I've never shown any gratitude towards it. I've never had an interest in getting to know it. And it's like, what the hell's wrong with me? So then I was like, okay, I think I'd like to get to know that a little better. And that was a big turnaround for me from out there to coming home. Big turnaround.
And that thing is a big part of you.
Yeah, it's more me than me.
Yeah.
Actually, it's more me than me.
Yeah. I find a lot of people beat themselves up for what they had to do to survive trauma. Yeah. And so many people carry shame and guilt and anger for that part of themselves that said, well, I'm going to get through this however I need to. Yeah. And I think a lot of the healing journey is not only forgiveness for how long people spent in trauma, especially if they were in an abusive relationship that they think they should have left sooner or whatever, but is forgiving what they did when they were surviving, because who people are when they're surviving and who people are when they're safe are totally different. Sure. And for the ways that they continue to carry those behaviors, because really undoing behaviors that you learn in trauma, it has to be very intentional, but most people don't even realize what they learned to survive.
Right. So you have to forgive yourself for what you needed to do. And then if you really want to be free, you have to let the other one go too, so that you're not preoccupied with. So you have to forgive the other person. Not to make what they did right. Yeah. But so you free yourself from your obsession with it. Because ultimately, after trauma and before trauma too, but ultimately you want to live for life, from life, not from memory of trauma, not from memory of war, not from all this stuff, because those are just signposts in a world that you're traveling through. Yeah. But if you can get back to your heart and go through that world with a heart filled with love, your life is amazing.
Do you think
and everybody has that in them?
Yes. And I love that you're talking about this. Do you think that forgiveness is necessary? Or can people move on without it?
No, it depends.
Forgiveness of others.
Yeah, it depends. Like if you're obsessed with what somebody did to you, you probably need to find a way to let it go, and forgiveness is the way to let it go. But I can tell you this, that if I go deep enough into my own being, there is nothing to forgive, because nothing ever got wronged in that deeper place.
Because they can't hit that deepest part of you.
Yeah, for trauma goes to body, to mind, to emotions, but it doesn't go to unconditional love that life has for you, or the peace that is the foundation of your and the universe's existence.
Interesting.
Trauma can't go there, right? It's just like thoughts can't go into your elbow, right? They're all just up in the cortex of your brain, right? And so you put your focus in the cortex of your brain and you got thoughts. But there's no thoughts in your elbow. There's no thoughts in your breath. There's no thoughts in your kneecap. There's no thoughts in the feeling of your bum on the chair.
Yeah.
Right? So, and if you know that the freedom you have is to move your focus from wherever it is, or wherever it drifts to wherever you want to deliberately put it, that's your greatest freedom. Right? So you can put it into trauma, you can put it into memories, you can put it into emotions, you can put it into stories, you can put it into your body, you can put it into the energy that enlivens your body, you can put it into the peace that is the foundation. You can put it in a corner between where the bookshelf meets the ceiling and the wall, right? You can put it in the, you can
put it anywhere. It's a choice.
Anywhere.
Yeah. Right? It's a choice.
And that's the greatest freedom we have.
I love that because, go ahead.
Yeah. And so literally you can put it on trauma when it's time to deal with trauma, and you can put it into peace when it's not time to deal with trauma.
I think a lot of people, so I get a lot of people that say, well, I want to control my thoughts. I want to control my thoughts, or I want to control my emotions. And I'm like, good luck. You can't do that.
Why? No, why? Because
you can't do
it. The function of the cortex of your brain is to think,
right?
And you're correlating, and you're integrating, and you're interpreting, and you're putting things together, and that's its job.
Right?
Why should you ever want a part of you whose job it is to do that to not do that? That's like autocratic control.
Right.
But you don't have to have your awareness in that place, watching your mind do its thinking.
Right.
You can walk from it. And again, this comes back to, you can change your focus. How do you do that? Well, if people get driven crazy by listening to their mind, well, just follow your breath.
Right. Put it on a different focus.
And you focus on your breath, and you just go, and you're already out of your head.
Yeah.
Right. Or put one of the legs of the chair on your foot, on the chair. It will immediately take your focus on your foot. Right.
That's so true.
Or why they say pinch yourself. That's why they say pinch yourself. Right. Because the moment I do that, I feel what that feels like, and I'm out of my head.
Right.
Right. Take a cold shower.
Yeah.
When the cold water hits you.
I tell people to bite a lemon.
Bite a lemon? Yeah.
I'm like,
there's,
you'll get in your body real quick.
There are so many ways to do that.
Yeah.
Or admire a flower.
Yeah. Anything that's out of your head and into your
life. Or watch a little spider go up and down blades of grass. If you're lying on the lawn. I used to do that when I was a kid. I remember a little red spider. My father said, were the cows on the meadow? I said, I don't know, but there was this little red spider. He thought I was being very unpractical.
You were just paying attention to the small details, which I also find is a secret to happiness. Pay attention to the little things.
And there are so many little things to pay attention to that are
infinite little things
that are entertaining and that are fun and that are amazing and are and you're surrounded by it.
Yeah.
I live in a room. There are no plants in this room, but the fact that I'm breathing is because plants make oxygen.
But there's a trampoline. I see the trampoline behind you.
There's a trampoline. Yes.
How often do you use it? That's awesome.
I really like trampolines. It's like bouncing on the bed. It's like being a kid bouncing on the bed.
That's so fun.
I use it pretty regularly.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So.
Oh man, where do we go now?
Where do we go?
I don't know. So you write books, which is amazing. Which one is your favorite?
Of the books I've read?
Yeah. And your favorite book that you've read. Let's do both.
Oh, okay. Favorite book I wrote is called The Book on Total Sexy Health, The 8 Key Parts Designed by Nature, which is an overview of nature and human nature. I have 3 missions in life. One of them, well, I've maybe some other ones, but one of my missions was to make sense of fats, how fats affect health, because it was a very confusing area when I got into it, 1980. And then I have 2 other missions, which is, one is to turn health into a systematically organized, teachable field. And the other thing is to do the same thing with human nature. And those 2 are actually the same.
Yeah.
They're actually the same.
Humans tend towards health if they're left alone.
What's that?
I said humans, if they're left alone, tend towards health because we know what we need. We just get outside of ourselves and then we don't do it.
Well,
unless you disagree.
Yeah.
In which case, educate me.
It's hard to get out of the training or the mistraining.
The dogma. Yeah.
So the idea of that we're going to drift towards health, well, we have to first drift out of our mistraining. And we've been trained ever since we were babies by a culture, and different cultures do it in different ways, about what is right according to the culture.
Right.
But what we really need to know is what is right according to life. Right. And I don't know a single culture that is actually really in touch with life. Not even the Persian, not even the Indian cultures, not even the
like indigenous cultures.
Even the tribal cultures, have gotten out of line in some ways.
So how do you get back in touch with like human nature and nature?
Well, we're back to the same issue.
You go internal.
Because here you are. Peace, the awareness can never get sick and never dies. And it's your foundation.
100%.
Well, that would probably make a difference to health, to be in touch with that. Right?
Right.
Instead of going, oh my God, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. Oh, I'm going to die. Oh my God, I'm going to die. Right?
Right.
And some people get very concerned about it. And they maybe don't do it that way, but they have anxiousness and they're worried about this and what if, right?
Mm.
Life energy, which is solar energy, which is the master in you, never gets sick, never dies.
Mm.
Formless, indestructible. Probably a good idea to be in touch with that. To tap into that. Out of that comes inspired creativity. Inspired creativity is the positive part of mind.
Mm.
And it's the shine of life into the world.
I love that.
Because life is a shine. Life is energy.
Yeah.
Life is solar energy that was trapped by plants and stored in bonds between atoms to make molecules, some of which are food. We eat them, and then we break them down, and in our cells, we break down those bonds. That energy is released. That's life energy. Now it's called life energy. It was solar energy. Now it's life energy. Then when you go subjective and you actually close your eyes, get into stillness, and look into the darkness, you will discover there's a light in your darkness. You are that light. That is the master. That is the life energy.
The points that you make are just so good. Like, they're just so good. That's so true. And I find that people who are most in touch with themselves are the most light. Like, they feel light as in they're not so heavy, and then they exude light as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Where's the light supposed to come from if it's not coming from you? Even in relationships, right? I mean, my relationship this is the relationship disaster drama. I saw the beauty in her. I saw the light in her. I saw the goddess in her. She saw it in me.
Mm-hmm.
Very attractive. Life is attracted to life.
Yes.
But the problem was she couldn't get in touch with it in her. She didn't see it in herself.
Mm.
And I didn't see it in myself. Mm. So I thought she should bring it to me. And she thought I should bring it to her.
Yeah.
Neither of us could get in touch with it. Well, if neither of us can get in touch with the unconditional love that is our life, to bring it into the relationship, when where the hell is it going to come from in the relationship if neither person can get to it? Right. That's why relationships don't work. But if people do their homework first and then get into a relationship with someone who's also done their homework, and they don't demand the impossible from each other, then you can play, and then you can dance, and then you can have projects together, and then you can do whatever you want. Right. But you're not depending on the other person to complete you, to fulfill.
Because they're already full.
Because you came into it whole, right?
Oh my God, I want to talk to you forever. Forever. I'm keep giving us knowledge.
You know how that goes? You get to a place, oh my God, forever, and you have to go pee. See?
So true.
Right? Yeah.
It's just so good. So how do people find you if they're like, oh my goodness, Udo is on it. That's my man. We love him. We want to hang out with him.
Yeah, there are a couple of ways. We haven't talked about this, but I work with oils and enzymes and probiotics, so digestion. These are the most neglected areas in nutrition for physical health.
Yes.
Oh, by the way, number 4, after inspired creativity, is a physical body. That's about food and fitness and rest and detox and digestion. And then number 5 is survival smarts. That's the protective part of mind.
Yes.
And that's human nature. So these 5 things they are different nature, a different function. They need a different kind of attention. They go off in a different way, and they respond to different kind of intervention. Mm-hmm. And then outside of that is social group. So you do the whole thing. Yeah, outside of that is social group. Then outside of that is natural environment. Mm-hmm. And outside of that is big picture. The fact that here I am in a terminal condition called the human body in an infinite universe, and to be okay with that, to be present to it, and to be comfortable in it.
A terminal condition.
Those are the 8 parts.
So true.
Right? And fundamentally, each one, you got to give each one its due, because they all affect health. Yeah. Everything affects health.
They're like a spider web. If you pull one, another one moves. If you pull one thread, it pulls the whole spider web.
In a way, I use a bullseye. I use a bullseye to lay it out. The inner 3 parts are not affected by our emotions, by our thoughts, by our social issues, by our environmental issues. They're not. And lucky for us, so that means the highest standard we could live by, is always built into it.
Is never damaged.
And is never corrupted. If you don't have that standard, whatever you do is always going to be corrupt. Because corruption means being off.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And why there's so much corruption in what people are doing in the world is because they're not doing the homework. Fundamental. It's very simple. It's actually very, very simple.
Yeah.
And we already got told that we ought to put that first.
Right. And
and of course, but it's also been taken from us because it said, well, he was perfect and you're screwed. And then you got to do this, and this, and then after you die, maybe some good stuff's going to happen to you.
Right.
It's like, no. They said, what I have, you have.
Right.
You can do more than I did. What you've done to the least of these, that you have done to me. That only makes sense that I am in everyone. Right? Only the difference between them and us was they sat down and did the stillness practice and got in touch with it and lived and brought that to expression. And we at best dabble in it.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair to say.
Yeah.
Where do people find your stuff?
But what if 8 billion people actually did that?
I don't know.
And it's possible, and that is possible to happen. Because it's in everyone, because it's their birthright.
It's accessible.
And it's accessible. More accessible now than ever, both because of communications.
Yeah.
I can talk to you where are you?
North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Yeah.
And I'm on the West Coast, right?
Hey.
So So we have the communication, but we also have the collected wisdom from many, many cultures and many, many teachers.
Right.
And we have life.
We have ourselves, and we have our most important.
We have that, and we have that in us. Yeah.
Right.
So where do you find people? Find me udoschoice.com, udoschoice.com. That's a website where I talk about oils and enzymes and digestion and all of that kind of stuff. And I have a website, udoerasmus.com. If you spell it right in the notes, they can find it.
I will spell it right. Or you can find everything else, your books and your mental health paradigms.
Yeah. I have a YouTube channel, and I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram.
Amazing. And on other podcasts and doing the thing.
I've been around for a while. So I'm not hard to find. But the more important than you finding me is finding yourself.
100%. So if people forget everything that we just said, and they only remember one thing that you're going to tell them, what would that be?
I would say, if you want to set a standard, like I'm a guy who likes to set high standards. Mm-hmm. Why? Because every time I fail, I learn something. As long as I don't drop the standard. Fail, get better. Fail, get better. Fail, get better. Fail, get better. Pretty soon, I can live up to that standard. What is the standard? I am come not to judge, but to love. What if that was your standard for the way you live your life in the world?
People would be like.
It'd be pretty cool. You'd like yourself a lot.
I love that.
And other people would like you, and you would probably be doing some pretty good things in your life.
Hell yeah, my dude. Oh my God, Udo, thank you so much for pouring into us. This was amazing.
Yeah, thank you. I love doing this because I'm going to be 80 this year, right?
Congratulations.
So with the time I have, this is what I want to do.
You may as well party, right?
And this is the best party I know.
Right. Podcasting is the best.
Yeah.
Udo, thank you so much.
Yeah,
truly.
Thank you. Thank you, Amanda.